I'm Maribel Tarouk. Tonight, their baby nearly choked to death. Now, a Toronto couple is asking why they waited on hold for 911.
We thought he was gone. Everybody around us thought he was gone. I've never felt more desperate in my entire life.
We'll have details on how long it took to get through to 911 and why the family is sharing their story. And
her financial activity, her phone activity has completely dropped off.
An update on a GTA real estate lawyer missing since March and why detectives now believe she met with foul play. Plus,
95-year lease speaker for an enormous swath of public parkland.
the opposition at Queen's Park says the Doug Ford government has given a nearly 100-year lease to the company planning a spa at Ontario Place. Good evening. A Toronto family says they're lucky their one-year-old is alive tonight. According to his parents, the boy choked on some cereal and at one point stopped breathing for 3 minutes. Desperate for help, they called 911 but couldn't get through right away. Now they want answers as to why they were left to handle the situation on their own. Talia Ricci has their story.
When this family's one-year-old started choking on a Cheerio and nothing was helping, panic set in.
The baby had gone completely limp. He wasn't breathing at all and was foaming at the mouth and purple, and we knew we were losing him.
The family called 911, but they weren't getting through, so they ran onto their driveway screaming for help. At that point, the father attempted the Heimlich maneuver and CPR, and the baby finally started crying.
We thought he was gone. Everybody around us thought he was gone. I've never felt more desperate in my entire life. And even when he started breathing again, I couldn't stop crying.
And during the incident, they say they were not able to immediately reach 911, waiting more than 5 minutes during 2 separate phone calls. When they finally did get through, the parents say they were told other medical calls would be prioritized since their baby was breathing again. Toronto paramedics say higher risk and higher priority calls will always be responded to first.
Not being able to get through to 911 is like probably the most desperate, helpless feeling that we had, that you could experience, where it defeats the whole purpose of having a 911 service if you're being put on hold like you're calling some regular customer service line.
Last year, Toronto's Auditor General found that call volume and staffing problems were at the heart of the delays at the 911 Communication Centre, and that the service needed to hire more operators. The report made 26 recommendations, including creating public awareness campaigns about when to call 911. There is no provincial oversight or legislation that sets standards for emergency call answering times in Ontario, but Toronto Police strives to meet a voluntary National Emergency Number Association minimum standard of answering 90% of all 911 calls within 15 seconds. In a statement, Toronto Police said it's experiencing an increase in its 911 wait times, and it's something it's aggressively working to improve, including by hiring additional operators. Toronto Police also said in this case the phone was unregistered, so they could not call back after the caller hung up. Toronto pediatrician Dr. Dan Flanders says choking is common with young children.
A small percentage of those children actually die, so it's a real life-threatening problem.
He has this advice for parents.
The absolute best thing that a parent can do, or parents can do in this situation, is take a CPR course for children and adults. So being informed and having the skills to perform a life-saving Heimlich maneuver on a choking baby is so valuable.
The family hopes sharing their story encourages more people to learn CPR, but they're also calling for change. They don't want any other parent to experience what they did.
I feel scared all the time. I feel alone. I feel panicked that it might happen again, and that we might be in a situation where we need help and we can't get it.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
We recently told you about the mysterious disappearance of a GTA real estate lawyer who'd been named in multiple civil suits alleging mortgage fraud. We've now learned new details about the investigation. Detectives say evidence shows Isabella Dan met with foul play. Meanwhile, CBC Toronto has uncovered new information about the last time she was seen, as well as serious allegations of professional misconduct she was facing. Farah Morelli has more details.
I'm here at 38 Waterwalk Drive in Markham. This is where we can now trace the steps of Isabella Dan and the last time she was seen in public. What I can tell you is she left the entrance of this condo. This is where she lived. And she got into a vehicle that wasn't hers. That vehicle, a Porsche Cayenne, that police say was driven by a business associate of hers. Police say the pair left around 8:22 p.m. on March 3rd and that Dan's business associate was supposed to drop her off at a location to meet someone else. While the driver has provided some info, police aren't sure where that drop-off happened. They believe it was either somewhere along Highway 7 between Warden and Leslie or along Yonge Street between York Mills and Eglinton. We spoke to one of the detectives on the case, and what he told us, the team now believes Isabella Dan met with foul play.
Investigators did attend her apartment or condominium. There was medication left behind, as well as some food and some identification of hers. Other stuff that makes us believe that she's met foul play is that her financial activity to known bank accounts that we're aware of, and her phone activity has completely dropped off.
Dan's law firm, which is in the building behind me here, is now under what's called a trusteeship. And what that basically means is the professional business is under the control of the Law Society of Ontario. That's likely because she's disappeared. We know that Dan was named in 4 civil suits involving mortgage fraud when she disappeared. But CBC Toronto has now learned that she was the subject of 3 complaints to the Law Society. 2 of those were lodged before she went missing. And while the complaints haven't been proven, they involve allegations of mortgage fraud as well as the misappropriation of funds. The complaints don't reveal just how much money was involved. Detectives wouldn't speak to the professional or financial challenges Dan might have been facing, but say a lot of her personal life is still unknown to them.
We were able to interview many people. However, most of those people are associates of hers in her business life. We haven't really been able to identify anyone that strictly knows her in her personal life. So her personal life is very mysterious to us.
We've now confirmed private investigator Brian King has been hired by a professional association to look into the disappearance of Isabella Dan. What he told us, he hasn't ruled out the possibility that Dan purposely disappeared. Meanwhile, police are still looking to speak to anyone who knew Dan in their personal life. It's been nearly 7 weeks since she was last seen. Farah Morelli, CBC News, Markham.
A major break for investigators in Peel region tonight as they issue a warrant for a man wanted in the murder of a gas station employee last year. A first-degree murder warrant has been issued for 30-year-old Dharam Singh Dhaliwal. He's wanted in the murder of 21-year-old Pawanpreet Kaur. The victim was working at a Petro-Canada station near Britannia Road and Credit View Road in Mississauga last December when she was shot and killed. Dhaliwal is described as 5 feet 8 inches tall, weighing 170 pounds with a tattoo on his left hand. They say he should be considered armed and dangerous. Police also announcing they've arrested 2 of Dhaliwal's family members, 25-year-old Pritpal Dhaliwal and 50-year-old Amarjit Dhaliwal. They are both facing charges of accessory to murder after the fact. York Regional Police are investigating a suspicious death after a male body was found in King Township yesterday morning. Police say they got a report of a deceased person around 7:50 a.m. from someone walking their dog along a trail near Seneca College's King campus. Officers confirmed the discovery of an unidentified male body and deemed the circumstances of the death suspicious. Police also say the cause of death is still unknown. One more questions about the Ontario Place deal coming out of Queen's Park today after reports that the company wanting to build a spa at the site has a lease contract that lasts 95 years. Lorenda Redekop takes us through today's developments.
This government is committing to a backroom 95-year lease.
NDP leader Marit Stiles asked about the long-term contract with spa company Therma to develop at Ontario Place, reported by Global News to be 95 years.
With absolutely no details.
Government side, come to order.
Failed to show Ontarians what value this deal has for the people of this province. They've failed to produce the contracts. They've failed to provide the business case. Speaker, Ontarians deserve to know.
Infrastructure Minister Kinga Surma wouldn't confirm the length of the lease.
The government is entering into a long-term lease, but Mr. Speaker, we cannot ignore the fact that they will be providing $500 million worth of capital investment on the site.
The government says under its deal, Therma would pay for maintaining public space, including walkways and the beach. Minister Surma's office responded that lease agreement terms are confidential to protect any future negotiations. A Premier's office staffer confirmed to reporters that there is a kill fee if they back out on the Therma contract. The interim Liberal leader says the government should be able to provide a business case.
Is that water park going to be there for 95 years? What's going to be there? What are we going to allow to have there? What permissions do they have? We don't know.
And I'm something of an expert on Highway 407.
This retired professor wrote a book about another long lease in the province, the sale of Highway 407. It lasts for 99 years.
The only reason a government would be making a 95-year lease is they want the thing to be irreversible. They want to bind governments essentially for the next century. A 99-year lease is something that's being done for an ideological reason.
Another long lease will have to be broken for the province to complete its vision for Ontario Place. The 99-year lease for the Science Centre between the province, city and the Toronto Region Conservation Authority expires in 2064. Today, the TRCA released a map showing it owns most of the 90 acres, including ravine land, not suitable for housing. A smaller section is owned by the city.
All of the 81 acres that we own is within the ravine and the water course there. So according to provincial, municipal, conservation authority regulations as they stand today, none of that area is developable.
The Conservation Authority says it's reached out to the province. The Ford government had previously said it plans to build housing there. Lorenta Redicomp, CBC News, Toronto.
The province says so far, no one has been fined under a new law that fines patients $400 a day if they refuse to be transferred from a hospital to a long-term care home. Bill 7 came to effect in September. The legislation is aimed at so-called alternative level of care. It's for patients who no longer need to be in hospital and are awaiting spots in long-term care homes. The province says 7,600 alternate level of care patients have moved into nursing homes since the law took effect, freeing up beds in hospitals rather. However, advocates say that the threat of the punishment of the law pushes patients into nursing homes they didn't choose. And starting today, Sick Kids Hospital will be removing their mask mandate in non-clinical and non-patient-facing areas. However, masking remains mandatory in all patient-facing clinical areas and common areas where patients may be present, such as hallways, elevators, stairwells, and lobbies. The policy change is based on recommendations from the Toronto Region Hospital Operations Table. Look who's back with us. This is Delia. Welcome back, Delia.
Thanks, Maribel. I mean, listen, I do have a little bit of good news, but that's towards midweek. As for now, let's just jump right into it and talk about these damp conditions. I mean, today we saw some scattered showers, and that will continue until tomorrow. But here's something I haven't said in a long time, and that's the F word. That is a risk of frost tonight, and also some cloudy conditions overnight tonight as well. You will need your umbrella for tomorrow, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. A little bit of sunshine is on the way. Current temperature right now in Toronto, 8 degrees. Pretty chilly one today, and we are sitting below those seasonal temperatures, which we'll talk about later on in the show. As for tomorrow, what can we expect? Like I said, some scattered showers, mainly cloudy. As we head into Wednesday, we'll see a little bit more rain, coming through into Toronto. And then as we look at tonight's temperatures and what to expect, like I said, a risk of some frost, cooler temperatures, a low of 2 degrees. It'll feel more like -1. And then as for tomorrow, some scattered showers, and it's a bit of a windy one as well tomorrow. Winds will be gusting up to 20 kilometers an hour and 40% chance of rain. So keep that umbrella handy because you'll need it.
Okay, well, we'll check back with you in a little bit. Delia, thank you. Thanks. Leafs are back on the ice tonight in Tampa for Game 4 of their first-round series with the Lightning. The team is coming off an emotional overtime win Saturday night that saw them take a 2-1 lead in the series. Our Greg Ross joins us live from Maple Leaf Square tonight, where fans are gathering to watch tonight's Game 4. Okay, Greg, the Leafs, great opportunity in this game to really take control of this series.
Absolutely, Maribel. The Leafs can take a commanding 3-1 lead in this series before heading back here to Scotiabank Arena for Game 5 on Thursday. Now, the Leafs have had a number of opportunities like this over the last several years, as we all know, but for whatever reason, they just haven't been able to close out those first-round series. But this year, they feel they have the components in place to get over that hump, including a former Stanley Cup champion who is now emerging as a real leader in the locker room.
Saturday's Game 3 win for the Leafs was about as emotional as they come.
Here after a score! It's over! And the Leafs have won it!
Morgan Rielly was the hero with the overtime winner, but it's tough to overlook the contribution of another Rielly, Ryan O'Reilly.
Rebound! Scores! Leafs have tied it!
It was O'Reilly who sent the game to overtime, scoring with just a minute left in the third. He then blocked a shot in the dying seconds. And it was O'Reilly who won the face-off in overtime to set up Rielly's OT winner.
Yeah, obviously when you win, it's a lot more fun.
And O'Reilly says to be successful in the playoffs, you have to have fun, something he clearly seemed to be having even while talking to the media this morning when asked if he ever gets nervous in the big moments.
Do I look nervous? No, I'm just kidding. No, it's fun. Like I said, I kind of just get excited for this, enjoy this time of year.
He provides a component to the Leafs roster they may have been lacking in previous years, a calming influence when the pressure is on.
Talks a lot. He's always positive, which is really good. Especially when we're down, he stays positive and gets everyone going.
He's a heart and soul guy and really leads the way for us. Emotional leader, and the way he plays and the way he carries himself. We're really lucky to have him on our side.
O'Reilly has turned his focus to the next task at hand tonight.
Tough challenge. We didn't have a great one last one, but found a way to win. We kind of need a response to come back to these guys and try to command the series. So it's going to be tough, but looking forward to it.
And something else that O'Reilly brings to the table is that championship experience, having gone all the way with St. Louis back in 2019. And if he can help the Leafs go on a long run, that's going to be big news for business owners, including bars and restaurants, who have really been taking advantage of the Leafs in the playoffs so far. We spoke to one bar owner who says it's just been huge for business.
All of our seats are full. The energy is great. People are spending money. It makes a huge difference. And in the past, it really even builds as the series go on. As I said, I'm hopeful that we'll get into the next series, and I think with that series, we'll be even busier for every single game.
I'll tell you what, it's going to be busier every single day here in Maple Leaf Square if they can get to the next round as well. And you can see fans here. Very thick, the crowd here tonight, even though the Leafs aren't actually at home. But how excited are you guys for this opportunity? The Leafs can go up 3-1.
So excited. So very excited.
You ready to go? Are they going to do it?
Oh, I'm so ready.
They're ready to go, Maribel. They want the Leafs to take that lead and then come home with a chance to finish this series off.
Well, we can dream, can't we? Let's hope that the Leafs do pull one out tonight. Thank you, Greg. And it is now day 6 of the federal workers' strike, with more than 150,000 workers back on the picket line.
Our members are optimistic that we'll be able to land a deal this week. We are escalating tactics, so we're asking the Canadian public to bear with us as we fight for wage increases for all workers across the country.
Over the weekend, negotiations between the Public Service Alliance of Canada and the Treasury Board failed to produce a deal. But according to PSAC President Chris Aylward, there are signs of progress. Still, workers across the country are set to ramp up the strike by moving picket lines to strategic locations, such as ports. The federal government is investing $349 million to buy electric buses for the TTC.
We need to bring TTC buses into the 21st century.
so that everyone in Toronto can enjoy a cleaner, more sustainable city and transit system.
Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland was joined by Deputy Mayor Jennifer McKelvey for the announcement today. The money, along with funds from the city, will be used to purchase 340 zero-emissions buses and 248 chargers. This investment is part of a goal to electrify the TTC by 2040 and help Canada achieve net zero emissions by 2050. The topic of transit safety has been top of mind for many in the GTA. Now, the Canadian Urban Transit Association is proposing changes to help tackle the root cause of violence on transit. Albert De La Talla reports.
The recommendations are an attempt to address the rising number of violent incidents in many of Canada's big cities, including Toronto. The report comes out of the Safety and Security Task Force of the Canadian Urban Transit Association, or CUTA, which advocates for the transit sector. It says it's making 27 recommendations in 5 key areas, including customer safety, staff safety, housing and shelter, substance abuse, and mental health. The association says investing in staff visibility would make a difference, and also notes people with complex issues take refuge on transit. CUTA says it's asking for various parties to come together to improve safety.
Safety and security in transit needs additional funding so that we can implement the recommendations so that we don't have illicit drug use, violence within our transit system.
Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland commented on the recommendations at a transit announcement in Toronto. She says she is concerned as a mother and Toronto MP and says targeting the social causes is important.
In our time in government, poverty rates in the country and income inequality have fallen. That is the result of conscious, intentional government policy.
We recently heard from the Toronto Transit Commission. They say violent incidents rose 46% last year compared to the year before, with nearly 1,100 in 2022 alone. And this year has already seen a number of high-profile episodes, including the fatal stabbing of 16-year-old Gabrielle Megalis in a subway station in March. Megalis is the 3rd person to be killed in and around the TTC since last summer. In December, 31-year-old Vanessa Kripuska was fatally stabbed at High Park Station in an unprovoked attack. And last June, 28-year-old Naima Doma was set on fire on a TTC bus at Kipling Station. She died days later in hospital. CUTA says with the safety and security of transit workers and riders at stake, addressing the root causes is the best way forward. Albert De La Talla, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto mayoral candidate Mitzi Hunter was in Parkdale today, promising more investments in public libraries.
I am announcing a 4-point plan for stronger libraries and better communities.
Hunter plans to create 16 more youth hubs in the library system. She will also boost support for the city's vulnerable to make libraries a safe and welcoming place for them. Hunter also wants to create a municipal broadband network within the library system so everyone has internet access. Finally, she says she would extend Sunday library service from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. As for the cost, Hunter wasn't providing specifics today. She says she will release a fully costed platform in the coming weeks.
So what I'm saying is no property tax increases, no TTC fare increases or fee increases for the next 3 years, because times are tough. We need to help people during this difficult period.
Along with the freeze on increases, mayoral candidate Anthony Peruzza also wants the city to stop sending money to the provincial government. Meeting with a family in Etobicoke, Peruzza says the city gives the province about $2 billion every year from what it collects in property taxes. He's calling for a new financial arrangement that would see those payments stop. Anna Bailau's bid to become mayor is getting some support from former Toronto mayors. Art Eggleton and Barbara Hall are both endorsing Bailau for the city's top job. Hall says Bailau will address the housing crisis head-on and will make sure residents don't get pushed out of the city. Eggleton says Bailau has a plan that will help restore city services like the TTC. Police across Canada are increasingly using drones, but in Hamilton, privacy researchers are raising red flags. It comes after documents obtained by CBC News reveal when, how, and why Hamilton police are using drones. For more on this investigation, let's turn to CBC's Bobby Hristova, who joins us from Hamilton. So, Bobby, what did you learn about how police use drones?
Marvel, these documents reveal most of the time the public does not know when Hamilton police drones are buzzing in the air. They used drones 43 times between January 2022 and January 2023, but only announced the use of drones on Twitter 17 times. For roughly 60% of those flights, the drones scanned the scenes of car crashes and helped with search and rescue efforts. But the police did not say why drones were used the rest of the time. Thankfully, some of those 17 tweets give us a sense. So a couple examples include a massive student street party near McMaster University during homecoming season, protests in downtown Hamilton when Trudeau showed up with a cabinet retreat in the city, and also the aftermath of a shootout at the Hamilton Cemetery where officers killed a gunman following the death of Toronto Police Constable Andrew Hung. The documents even show the police service didn't follow part of its own privacy policy.
So we talked earlier about red flags being raised by this. How did privacy researchers react to the documents?
So I spoke to 3 privacy researchers and the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, and what I showed them was the privacy impact assessment police did on the drone program. And that outlines the privacy impacts drones have on the public and how police are ensuring they're following the law. So the researcher said it's great that there was a privacy impact assessment, but it has holes. And so some of the concerns include how drones impact the privacy of bystanders. So for example, if there's a protest in downtown and there are police drones buzzing in the air, might that deter people from protesting? And if so, is that a violation of charter rights? The other side of the coin is, what if there's a demonstration or a crime happening in a neighborhood? If there are drones in the sky, will that impact the privacy of bystanders who have nothing to do with the investigation? There are also concerns about what's not in the privacy assessment. So the assessment did not mention at all any facial recognition software. Experts say that's a problem because if you're not mentioning it in the document, it opens the door for you to include it in the future. And I should note, last summer, there was a U.S. company called Axon International that announced it was going to develop a taser drone to respond to school shootings. Days later, it halted those plans because of all the public outcry. So when I asked Hamilton police if they're ever going to use facial recognition or weapons like tasers on drones, they said, in their exact words, not at this time.
All interesting information you've shared with us here, Bobby. Thank you.
Thank you.
Still ahead, a call to do more to include Indigenous studies in our school system.
Teaching now in Toronto for the last few years, that's a comment I hear often from my students, is that they just did not have access to this information.
Why some say Ontario is still behind in developing Indigenous content into curriculums. Next. According to a survey by an education advocacy organization, Ontario schools have come a long way in including Indigenous studies into the curriculum. But it could go further if the Ministry of Education made it mandatory. Ali Chiasson has more on the survey findings.
This is one of those pretty good news stories with some gaps in it.
Public school advocacy organization People for Education has published a new survey looking at the rollout of Indigenous studies in the Ontario curriculum.
We did a scan of school boards, and now 15 school boards in Ontario have made a mandatory course in grade 11 that have taken the mandatory or the compulsory grade 11 English course and made it focused on Indigenous writers, artists' ideas, which is another sort of huge move forward.
They surveyed Ontario's 72 publicly funded school boards, and over 1,000 principals responded. It states that some schools have gone above and beyond in developing, quote, strong partnerships with local Indigenous communities. But according to Kidder, many others say they need more support from their school board and the Ministry of Education. They're recommending the province makes an Indigenous studies course compulsory.
We need leadership from the province, and we need the province just to say, you have to do this. And then it doesn't feel controversial for any board to actually make that move.
According to the survey, schools in Northern Ontario were more likely to offer Indigenous education opportunities, while schools in the GTA were least likely to offer them.
Teaching now in Toronto for the last few years, that's a comment I hear often from my students, is that they just did not have access to this information until they were in university. And so I think there's definitely that gap.
Brock Pitawanakwat, a professor of Indigenous Studies at York University, says if he could design the course for high schoolers,
often what students really value, and this would be true for both non-Indigenous and Indigenous students, is the opportunity to do land-based activities, to meet with elders.
In a statement to CBC News, a spokesperson for the Ministry of Education appreciated the People for Education survey about how far schools have come and touted, quote, "Our government is investing nearly $167 million for the next school year to support Indigenous learning in the classroom."
I really support the concept. One of the things that I find is really tough, though, is that we are struggling to hire Indigenous educators. And then there's the whole question, too, which is another issue of like, well, can Indigenous education be properly delivered or effectively delivered by non-Native teachers? And I think in some instances, yes, but many times, no, probably not.
Pitawanakwat says it's about more than money. Reconciliation through education takes time and effort. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
This past week saw a gathering of entrepreneurs at Toronto's Metropolitan University vying for investment capital for their startup ventures. What all of them face are the challenges in the business world of being young and being Black. Nisha Patel has that story.
For these young entrepreneurs, the pressure is on.
Hi, my name is Edo Adolfo, and I'm the co-founder of GF.
They're making a pitch to a panel of industry experts and could walk away with thousands of dollars to grow their business.
So far, I've been working on this by myself.
It's part of the Black Innovation Summit put on by the DMZ, a tech incubator at Toronto Metropolitan University. Emmanuel Akindele is up next.
With the $20,000, our goal is to use that to launch Blue Guardian to over 50,000 kids.
One of the first of its kind in the country, the program has been connecting Black founders with money and mentors.
I can relate to their life stories, I can relate to the challenges, and we can pull solutions from each other.
In the short term, the goal is to grow and reach more entrepreneurs. But in the long run, there's hope the startup scene will become diverse enough that the program is no longer necessary.
Now we're all sort of on an equal footing, have the same access to resources, capital, knowledge.
Entrepreneur Mark Lafleur faced those challenges firsthand. He says it's common for Black startups to be underfunded because investors, known as VCs, often only back people in their existing networks.
At the end of the day, the VC industry has been known to be, pale, stale, and male.
Lafleur successfully sold his business True Local in 2021 and says programs like the Black Innovation Summit are essential.
It's going to inspire more, youth today that are Black to get into business.
Akindele is building a mental health app for youth. He says trying to get a business off the ground is especially tough early on.
There's just a lot of doors that are not always going to be open.
Luckily, he's the big winner and says these funds will be a game changer.
Trying to grow our company, get our app in the hands of as many kids as possible.
Because when you're just getting started, every dollar counts. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
The U.S. says a ceasefire agreement has been reached in the conflict in Sudan. It's set to start at midnight. It came with governments rushing to get their citizens out and the UN Secretary General urging Security Council intervention.
The violence must stop. It risks a catastrophic conflagration within Sudan that could engulf the whole region and beyond.
More foreign nationals boarded planes and ships. Germany alone has flown out 400 people. In the capital region, there were more airstrikes. Citizens are still fleeing on buses. Food, water, medicine, and fuel are all running low. The U.S. announcement of offers offers a glimmer of hope, but previous truces have failed to hold. A UN Security Council meeting is planned tomorrow. The federal government has introduced a new round of legislation to improve airline passenger rights. It follows a record number of complaints from disgruntled travelers about delays, cancellations, and compensation. Sophia Harris has the details.
The transport minister says he's going to make it easier for air passengers to claim compensation for flight delays by putting them in the driver's seat.
It will no longer be the passenger who will have to prove that he or she is entitled to compensation. It will now be the airline that will need to prove that it does not have to pay for it.
The current rules mandate airlines only have to pay compensation up to $1,000 if the flight disruption was within the airline's control. Since the regulations took effect in 2019, thousands of passengers have filed complaints with the Canadian Transportation Agency, claiming they've been wrongly denied compensation. Now, the minister says he's closing the loopholes airlines have used to avoid paying up.
There will be no more loopholes where airlines can claim a disruption is caused by something outside of their control for a security reason when it's not.
The proposed changes include mandatory compensation for all disruptions with few exceptions, new requirements for delayed baggage and flight refunds, increased maximum fines to $250,000 for airline violations, and a streamlined CTA complaints process. Currently, the Canadian Transportation Agency is facing a backlog of 45,000 complaints.
Under these amendments, the CTA would clear air passenger complaints sooner by replacing its current adjudication process for resolving disputes with a simplified process.
There is a real possibility that we may see fare increases.
This industry spokesperson isn't happy with the proposed changes. He warns airfares could go up due to increased costs and that passengers may still experience long flight delays.
The announcement today doesn't address anything relating to improving the overall air travel experience for passengers, which is what passengers care most about when they go to book a flight. Nothing about airport infrastructure improvements.
The government says the new regulations will take effect at the earliest opportunity. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Toronto.
So Dahlia, did you say we had to hang on through some of this dreary, cool weather, and then there's something better waiting for us?
That's absolutely right. I even said that there's a risk of frost tonight. I mean, when was the last time we had frost? I mean, maybe like 2 weeks ago or something, but it's going to be around for tonight, but mainly cloudy conditions overnight. And those dreadful rainy conditions will continue until tomorrow, but mainly scattered showers really is what we're going to see. And then there is, yes, a light at the end of the tunnel, which means some more sunshine on the way. Now, the current temperature right now in Toronto is 8 degrees. We've been feeling some cooler temperatures today, and we will be seeing more of these conditions over the next few days. Usually the average high is close to 14 degrees and the average low is almost 3 degrees. And today's daytime high is 9 degrees. So we're not even hitting those double digits yet. So that means we're still quite chilly, and we're sitting above the low temperatures for usually this time of year, but still chilly. As you can see, there is that precipitation making its way through, and that low pressure system is sticking around. And we'll take a closer look in just a bit. There's also a frost advisory that's already in effect for southwestern Ontario, for Windsor, Chatham, Kent, and some of the other areas in the region like Leamington. As for Toronto, we're seeing those cloudy conditions into tomorrow and scattered showers. We even see a little bit of that mix of rain and some of that flurries into tomorrow as well for the northern part of the GTA. But that rain really will kick in around 4 p.m., those scattered showers. And then again, we get those cloudy conditions, but southern part of Toronto will be seeing much heavier rainfall. But really on Wednesdays, when we see more of that wintry, well, not wintry, but more of that spring condition, a little bit of that frost and rain. So more of those damp conditions on Wednesday. But then we'll talk about Thursday in just a bit. Some windy conditions as well today. Heading into tomorrow, we're seeing winds gusting up to 28 kilometers an hour, especially as you commute to work. You'll see a bit of a windy one. As for tonight, what to expect, temperatures will drop. It will be 2 degrees and risk of frost as well. And over for the next 3 days. There we go. Rain, rain, and then a little bit of sunshine on Thursday.
Okay, I'm just hanging on for that Thursday in the sun, Dahlia.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maribel.
The coronation of King Charles is less than 2 weeks away on May 6th, but it appears Canadians aren't all that fond of the new monarch. A survey by the Angus Reid Institute suggests he may face a tough road ahead when it comes to winning over support. Linda Ward has the details.
Following the death of Queen Elizabeth II, we saw an outpouring of support from across this country for the royal family. But this new Angus Reid survey says we shouldn't interpret that as support for the royal family or for the new king. The new Angus Reid survey says 60% oppose recognizing Charles as king, and that opposition is higher when it comes to things like swearing an oath to him, putting him on Canadian currency, and singing God Save the King. It also found only 28% of those surveyed had a favorable view of the king. Now, the poll also asked Canadians what they think of his wife, Camilla, and what she should be called: queen, queen consort. Well, this survey found 2/3 were against recognizing Camilla as Queen of Canada, and 60% say Camilla should not be referred to as queen. Angus Reid also asked Canadians whether they believe Canada should remain a constitutional monarchy. More than half, 52%, said no, and out of those who say no, 88% say that they would be in favor of reopening the Canadian Constitution to split from the monarchy for good. We've been talking to some people here at Union Station today about how they feel about the monarchy, and more specifically, how they feel about King Charles. Here's what they told us.
Certainly not the Queen, right? I do miss the Queen. But I don't know. Let's give him a chance, right?
I'm looking forward as a king, because he has waited along and he deserves this.
Well, I think he's a nice dude, right? I think he's a good bloke. I admire him. But of course, like every leader, there's everybody's eyes on him, and hopefully we don't see any skeletons come out of the closet.
We've been asking people here as well whether or not they'll be tuning in to watch the coronation. The Angus Reid survey found 59% of people say they have some interest in tuning in, despite the fact that for many, this is the first coronation they will have experienced in their lifetime. Linda Ward, CBC News, Toronto.
A Canadian family is going public after a pair of high-end Nike shoes started to tear. They say the cleats, endorsed by a professional soccer player, should have lasted more than 10 weeks. Erica Johnson reports.
He's been playing soccer since age 3, dreams of joining the big leagues. Idolizes the legendary player Cristiano Ronaldo. So when he endorsed a new pair of Nike soccer cleats last fall, Spencer wanted in.
He's one of the best in the world, and it was his last signature shoe that they were going to make with him.
Nike touted advanced technology, lightweight mesh for better ball control. But it's the star power that makes certain shoes winners, says this marketing prof.
Your peers are going to think you're special because you have these shoes on, and these shoes are going to make you feel better because they're his shoes.
Spencer antes up some of his own cash for the $400 shoes. His parents cover the rest. But just 10 weeks later, the left cleat tears open.
I was super frustrated because it just felt like a waste of money at that point.
They send the shoes back to Nike for help.
We've received your claim product.
But it's a missed shot. Nike says the torn cleat is not a result of a material or manufacturing fault.
I can't believe they offer a shoe that's $400+ and it falls apart in less than 3 months. It doesn't make any sense.
This cobbler says the shoe's split looks like a design issue.
Where the rubber logo was placed is exactly right at the bend of the foot. So while he is playing and bending his foot, the materials are sort of fighting against one another.
Spencer couldn't play with the damaged cleats, so his parents bought another pair of Nikes, shelled out another $400. But again, the shoes didn't last. In less than 3 months, both soles cracked. In a statement to go public, Nike said the quality and performance of its products is of utmost importance, and it believes the ripped Ronaldo cleat was a one-off. It had no comment about the second pair. Nike also reached out to Spencer's family about both pairs of cleats, saying they've scored a full refund. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
An update to a story we shared earlier this month about a dog named Max, who was left in the Davenport area after the owner could not afford to keep him. According to the Toronto Humane Society, many families were interested in adopting Max, and on Friday, he officially found a place to call home. His new family already loves him very much, and he has a new dog sibling, too. I love these happy endings.
How sweet. And Max gets to be indoors under these lovely conditions that we're experiencing when it's raining. But anyhow, let's see. So it's currently 8 degrees in Toronto, a little bit warmer really considering it's 3 degrees and 3 degrees in Mount Forest as well. But still, we are sitting below seasonal highs and that will probably continue over the next few days as well. Overnight tonight, temperatures will drop to 2 degrees. There's a risk of frost, cloudy coverage overnight, and it'll feel more like -1. Tomorrow, though, some scattered showers, and it'll be 10 degrees for the daytime high. A little bit windy. Winds will be gusting up to 20 kilometers an hour. So you might want to keep your umbrella handy for tomorrow and Wednesday, especially Wednesday night. It's also going to drop and be -1, so quite chilly Wednesday night. But then Thursday, look at that, 11 degrees, back to those double digits and sunshine, and a wet one on Friday and Saturday. And you know, we can all use a little bit of sunshine on Thursday. So we'll just keep an eye for the next 2 days, and then we'll have a break on Thursday.
We'll enjoy that Thursday. All right, thanks, Dahlia.
Thanks, Maribel.
And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you for joining us. Chris Glover has your next local news tonight at 11 after the National. We will see you back here tomorrow at 6. Have yourselves a great night, everyone.